Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel, where today we are going to be doing a full-length, non-spoilery review of Where the Drowned Girls Go by Seanan McGuire. So, this is the 7th book in the Wayward Children series, which is a young adult portal fantasy series where we're following a group of children who are currently living at Miss Eleanor's West School for Wayward Children, and every single one of them at some point in their past has gone through a doorway, which was a portal to another world, and for some reason has come back to this world and are now struggling to adjust back to this world. And so Miss Eleanor is trying to help them. And in this specific book, we are following Cora. And Cora was part of the group that had quite an adventure in the 5th book. And she is really struggling to deal with the aftermath of that adventure. And so she requests a transfer over to the sister school of Whitethorn. And then when she arrives on the doorsteps of Whitethorn, she very quickly realizes that maybe she has made a mistake. And the story goes from there. So let's jump right in with the world building. And the world building in this was fantastic. The fact that we finally went over to Whitethorn, this school that has been hinted about up until this point, like we knew it existed, we just didn't know a ton about it. It was fascinating to see how Whitethorn handles these children compared to Miss Eleanor. It really gives the reader a much deeper understanding of how Miss Eleanor approaches things because, like, we see the contrast. And then additionally, we finally get this world building explanation for a thing that I have been wondering about for a while now. And it was just kind of done nonchalantly, which was nice. But also I loved the explanation, and I really liked that it kind of sets up some world building that I think could take us in some really interesting places moving forward. I think that the only issue that I had with the world building is that I just wanted more. The world building we have is fantastic. It's very well thought out. It fits together very well. However, there's not a ton of it because this is a novella. And so we just don't really have a ton of time to dive into the world building, but I really want to because it's clear that there's so much going on that is so interesting. So it was the correct amount for the kind of story that is being told. I just wish there was more. Moving into the characters, our main character, again, is Cora, who in her world, she was a mermaid, and so now she's trying to adjust to having legs instead of fins. But I really like Cora. I honestly was just absolutely rooting for her to kind of figure out how to deal with her problem. Trying to do this without spoilers is a little bit difficult, but basically she has this problem. She's trying to overcome it, and I was really rooting for her to overcome it. The only thing I will say is that her growth did feel a little bit underdeveloped. I really could have used a little bit more because it felt like it just went by a little bit too quickly. I did also want to take a moment to address some of the criticism of this book that has to do with Cora. Basically, Cora is fat, and her inner monologue frequently has to do with the fact that she is fat. She thinks about her fatness a lot. She thinks about how people are judging her and her fatness a lot. And there has been criticism that it's a lot, that it's overwhelming, that it's just too much. And I wanted to address that because when I read it, I found it to be very realistic. It's not comfortable, but it's very realistic. And the reason is because Cora has been fat her entire life. Like, as long as she can remember, she's been fat, which means she has also, for her entire life, had people talking to her about her body and her body's size. She's had people concern trolling her. She's had people bullying her about her size. So regardless of how she thought about her body before, society has absolutely made it her problem and told her in so many words that what everybody sees about her first and foremost is her fatness, and that everything is going to be about her is going to be judged through that lens as a fat person and not just a person. And so while like because society has made it her problem, I can absolutely understand that affecting how she thinks about things, because like that's just the world that she lives in. So no, it's not comfortable to be inside her head. And yes, she does think about her body a lot, but it's absolutely understandable why that would be happening. And furthermore, I have heard from a lot of fat people who have read this book who have said, yes, this is exactly what it's like. So again, it's not comfortable, but it is very, very realistic. So as for the other characters, we do see some of the characters from previous books, mainly Sumi and Eleanor and Reagan, but we also get introduced to a number of new characters that I'm hoping that we will get to dive into in future volumes. But I will say that this is the book where I learned to love Sumi. Sumi has not been my favorite character. Her dialogue tends to be a little bit word salad, and I really struggle to get through it. But in this book, she is forced to be a little bit more serious, and her insights are so incisive. And I learned to love Sumi. And so even though I don't love the word salad, I'm much more likely to work with her on it in the future books. I also loved Reagan's integration into this book. Reagan was the protagonist of book 6. It was absolutely heartbreaking to see her, but I'm really excited for what happens with her going forward. And then the plot. I don't actually have a ton to say about the plot because I found it to just be really, really good. It's a very solid plot that is a straightforward adventure. We know kind of where we're likely to end up, and the book just takes you along for the ride. I think that this is probably the most well-balanced plot I've ever seen in a novella. It's like the plot points that we hit along the way were timed exactly right. I really just don't even have any criticisms with this plot. It was just very, very well done. As for pacing, style, and structure, this is a very fast-paced book. It is an adventure, and the writing is a little bit flowery. If you've read previous books in this series, which yes, you should, if you haven't, the even-numbered books tend to be more flowery as we're following children in their past as they go through the portals. And then the odd-number books tends to be the present-day, more adventure-style books. And they do still have a little bit of flowery writing, but not nearly as much because, like, we just don't have time for that. So it is still there a little bit, but not a ton. So overall, with this book, and actually with this series, I only have one criticism, really. And that's just, it always feels like there's something that's slightly underdeveloped. In this book, it was Cora's growth. In other books, it's been like the world building, or maybe the plot, or the characters, or whatever. It always feels like we just need like 10 to 25 more pages to develop things out, and then it would be great. But then I think about it, and like, for example, in this book, yeah, I wanted more from Cora's growth, but I realized it would be really hard to do that without slowing down the plot of this, which I thought was done fantastically. So it's a criticism that I'm recognizing that may not have a real fix without making something worse. And so even though, yes, it is a criticism, I recognize that that may be just a personal problem, that adding it to the book may actually not make it better, all of that stuff. I just wish we could have a little bit more. But overall, I loved this book. I really loved Cora as our main character. I loved the story, and I loved that the world building and this plot laid threads down that I think are going to be very interesting paths to explore in future volumes. And honestly, I can't wait for the next book. And so I gave Where the Drowned Girls Go 5 stars. So if you have any thoughts or feelings about this book, if you're planning on reading it, let me know down below in a comment. But otherwise, that is all I have. So if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to, and until next time, have happy reading, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!